Coming up on Cronkite News, we have an up-close view of the remains left behind from the Telegraph fire.
And later, the Senate makes movement on the bipartisan infrastructure plan.
And later on Break It Down, the racial gap for professors in higher education.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Emily Carmen.
And I'm Rob Winder. Thank you for joining us. Despite the recent rains, fires continue to burn across the state. Emergency crews are battling the Walnut Fire and doing protective burnouts around structures in order to save them. With the fire concentrated in Cochise County, firefighters kept a careful watch on the Amarin Museum and its irreplaceable Native American art. Interstate 10 reopened Wednesday after being shut down for hours a day earlier scheduled in the proximity of the fire. An evacuation order had the J6 Equestrian Center gearing up for evacuated horses from the town of Dragoon and the surrounding area.
You're talking hundreds of pounds of hay and grains to be able to last a horse for a week or 10 days or 2 weeks, potentially, depending on how that fire goes. You've got to convince a horse to get into a steel box so that it can travel somewhere.
Officials advise anyone traveling through the area to first check on the fire status for their own safety. Nearly all of the state parks are closed this week due to the wildfire. Other wildfires have sparked evacuation orders in Strawberry and Pine.
Another fire with devastating consequences to the state is the Telegraph fire, which has been burning in Arizona since June 4th and has charred more than 180,000 acres. Isabella Fredrickson got a first-hand look at the fire area yesterday and found some positive underneath the charred black landscape.
The Telegraph fire is burning rapidly through Gila, Pinal County, and the surrounding areas. Over the past few weeks, the fire has become one of the largest in Arizona history.
At one point, this was the number one priority fire.
The reason the fire is spreading so far and fast can be credited to many environmental factors. Firefighter Bob SJOLUND says at one point the fire was so intense it made its own weather.
It basically came across the landscape as a wind-driven fire. When it found the right fuels, it found the right day, mixed with the high heats that they had in the region here. It was the perfect combination for they call the perfect storm.
The damage is clear as entire landscapes are left black. 52 structures burned so far. Firefighters from as far as Oregon State have come down to help contain the flames. While the fire has been deemed man-made, it is still under investigation. And while the damage seems severe, the ecosystem is going to make a full recovery, and experts say that the plants and vegetation have been built to recover.
Kind of fire doing what it's supposed to do.
Fire Public Information Officer Molly Hunter explains that in some areas, the black cover is an illusion, as life still exists underneath. While it looks desolate, Hunter says it can be beneficial for both the environment and in preventing future fire damage.
Overall, this is sort of good for kind of knocking back that shrub cover, so it's going to reduce the fire threat going forward.
While it may be hard to see the positive now, in a year this landscape may tell a whole other story. In Globe, Isabella Fredrickson, Cronkite News.
Cooler temperatures overnight and some rain has helped keep the Telegraph fire down. It is now 89% contained.
The flat tax passed the Arizona House along party lines. By a 2-vote margin, House Bill 2900 was approved and will be sent to Governor Doug Ducey's desk. Democrats called the bill a windfall for the wealthiest Arizonans and say it neglects the needs of Arizona's schools and infrastructure. Republicans say the measure will spur job growth. It was a contentious day at the Capitol. House Republicans passed a procedural rule that limited debate on budget amendments to a half an hour. Democrats called the change an attempt to silence the voices of their constituents. And teachers wearing Red for Ed shirts were nearly thrown out of the gallery for being too loud. With the CDC's moratorium on evictions set to expire in a week's time, the Biden administration ordered an extension through the end of July. 6 million American families are behind on rent and at risk for being homeless this summer. That's according to the National Low Income Housing Coalition. Facing the possibility of mass evictions, the White House wants to buy more time to get federal rent relief money to the tenants who need it. While nearly $50 billion has been allocated during the pandemic, Some states, like Arizona, have only released 4% of their funds. The funding can also save some mom and pop landlords who are on the brink of bankruptcy due to months of lost rent payments. If the Biden administration acts as expected, it will mark the 4th time the deadline for lifting the ban on evictions has been pushed back.
Senators reported they have come to a deal on a bipartisan infrastructure talks last night. Senators met with President Biden this morning to discuss the deal they made. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said they would try to move the infrastructure package in July. Meanwhile, Democrats are working on another plan with a much bigger price tag that could also be considered by lawmakers. Senator Kyrsten Sinema talks on the agreement.
There are many who say that bipartisanship is dead in Washington, D.C. and across this country, but this historic agreement today between Republicans and Democrats in the Senate and with the President of the United States shows that when a group of people who are committed with shared values to solving the problems and challenges our country faces, we can use bipartisanship to solve these challenges.
The total cost of the plan is $1.2 trillion over 8 years.
Officials from the Arizona Department of Health Services say some dispensaries are voluntarily recalling 8 marijuana products due to possible contamination. Some bacteria and fungus traces were found in some samples collected. Researchers found traces of salmonella bacteria and mold. The mold found can cause allergic reactions such as shortness of breath, coughing, and other cold-like symptoms. These are often compounded when someone is sick with another disease. And salmonella can cause nausea, vomiting, and other stomach flu symptoms. Officials say no illnesses have been reported so far. Those who have bought potentially contaminated products should not consume them and dispose of them instead.
Coming up on Cronkite News, a federal investigation is being led into how some boarding schools forced assimilation. We'll go into how these schools operated in Arizona.
And later, what is the status for Chris Paul for tonight's game? We'll have the latest coming up a little later in the newscast.
He was bigger than boxing.
I am the greatest.
He was larger than life.
His magnetism just was amazing. Who is this guy?
He was a revolutionary. He was a groundbreaker.
And ain't nobody gonna stop me.
Ken Burns captures an intimate story of victory, defeat, and determination.
The price of freedom comes high. I have paid, but I am free.
Muhammad Ali.
Coming in September to Arizona PBS.
Cronkite News provides students at ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism with the opportunity to gain real-world experience in the newsroom. At Cronkite News, our students produce professional content for audiences by taking on all roles, whether they be reporting, anchoring, producing, or studio production. Each department gives students first-hand professional newsroom experience. For more information, visit cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Take a journey with Arizona PBS. Join us every Sunday afternoon for Destination Drama. Watch all your favorite PBS dramas like Grantchester.
I'm William Davenport, new vicar of Grantchester.
Poldark.
Nothing in my life has meaning without you.
And Victoria.
I know that I'm young, but I know my duty.
And if you missed a recent primetime drama, we'll help you catch up on those too. Destination Drama. Every Sunday afternoon at 1. Only on Arizona PBS.
By the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Before Professor HAALAND, I had an insane amount of passion, but I almost felt helpless because I didn't know how to use it. Professor HAALAND gave me a chance to make a difference. Being at a place like ASU allows you to take these big leaps. Ultimately, the biggest problems in the world cannot be solved alone.
Cronkite News is more than your local news station. Through our innovative ideas, we create new ways to connect with our viewers and have their stories be heard. Our cutting-edge technology allows us to take a deeper dive into seeking the truth and delivering new perspectives. Stay up to date on top Arizona stories anytime on TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook at Cronkite News.
751 unmarked graves were found at a former residential school for Indigenous children in Saskatchewan, Canada. This follows the discovery of 215 burials in British Columbia last month. A new initiative is going to uncover the dark past of boarding schools like this all across the U.S. Reporter Julia Sandor took a look at how this initiative will affect Indigenous people in Arizona.
The Federal Indian Boarding School Initiative is set to investigate the Native American boarding schools that forced assimilation in the 19th and 20th centuries. For years, these schools did not let Indigenous people speak their native language, practice their own religion, or learn about their culture. They even had to change their names.
Lieutenant Richard Henry Pratt had a lot to do with the structure of these boarding schools. His idea was kill the Indian, save the man. So the whole destruction and annihilation of Indian identity, Indian culture, was to be destroyed at these federal boarding schools.
TALAHONGVA attended the Phoenix Indian School in the late 70s and says by that time the school was more lenient and even had tribal clubs. But her experience was much different from her ancestors. U.S. Interior Secretary Deb Haaland wants to amplify all Indigenous voices and share the impact these schools had on their families.
The same agency that tried to eradicate our culture, our language, our spiritual practices, and our people. To address the intergenerational impact of Indian boarding schools and to promote spiritual and emotional healing in our communities, we must shed light on the unspoken traumas of the past, no matter how hard it will be.
The initiative will compile and analyze records to find past boarding schools, find names and tribal affiliation of former students, and locate all possible burial sites on or near the schools.
Yes, it will be hard to look back on that past, but it's time that it was acknowledged. The atrocities that happened here need to be acknowledged, not only for those that have already gone, but those of us that are still here. And those of us that are still coming.
In Phoenix, Julia Sandor, Cronkite News.
Haaland says the investigation will focus on compiling and reviewing decades of records to better understand the loss of life at the schools while they were in operation. The final report for the initiative is due by April 1st, 2022.
President Joe Biden has nominated Cindy McCain as a U.S. representative to the United Nations Agencies for Food and Agriculture. The position comes with the rank of ambassador. The White House made the announcement yesterday. McCain endorsed Biden during the 2020 election and appeared in a campaign ad for him. Some say the announcement emphasizes Biden's goal of working across the aisle and push for bipartisanship. McCain says she is honored and looks forward to working with the president.
That rain we saw yesterday brought a little relief, but there is actually a return to triple digits next week. Katie Cheshire has our forecast from the Weather Center.
For those of you who relished the rain yesterday, I am sad to report that the storm is moving northeast away from us up to Illinois and Minnesota, where they may see some heavier rainfall this weekend. As far as Arizona specifically, you can see that there are a few storms and potential rain shower in the north of the state near Flagstaff and Window Rock, but by Sunday, the entire state will likely be experiencing completely clear skies. As far as your day tomorrow, if you live in Phoenix, your high is 106 degrees, and much of the southern half of the state is in those triple digits. However, in the north, it's slightly cooler, including at the Grand Canyon. Though many national forests are closed right now due to fires, the Grand Canyon is still open, so that could be a good option for your family if you want to escape the heat and get outdoors this weekend. And you may want to escape the heat, especially if you live in Phoenix, where the high for each day of the weekend comes in the triple digits, including Sunday at 110. As far as your work week next week, it may cool down a little bit, including a chance of rain on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, with Wednesday predicted to dip below 100 degrees. In the Weather Center, Katie Cheshire, Cronkite News.
Chris Paul is expected to make his return to the team tonight after taking COVID protocols. The Suns confirmed he would return this morning, and he is listed on tonight's roster. Chris Paul has been in COVID protocols since June 26. The Suns are currently leading against the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals 2-0. Game 3 tonight is away in Los Angeles. So far, Chris Paul has averaged 25 points per game.
There are some turns in life that you never see coming, but that detour can turn out to be your destiny. Cronkite News reporter Erin Slindy tells us how one person's love for drawing has taken her far in the golf world.
Technology has taken over many positions in the sports world, but there are some positions that are irreplaceable. Sandra Strzok has done the calligraphy for golf scorecards for more than 40 years. She went to school to be an artist, until one day she got a unique job offer.
They needed a calligrapher, and I didn't know what that meant. Write the names and keep the score. I said I could do that.
After each golfer sinks their final putt of the day on the last hole, their scores are recorded up here by Strzok on large sheets for everyone to see.
The scoreboard is part of the championship. In other words, to go to one of these events and not see a scoreboard would be like, oh my God. It'd be like, it's part of an event.
Scorecards are a significant part of the golf culture at tournaments, from the junior level to the professional level.
Everybody as a group of people get together more, they interact more, I feel like it's a little bit more of a tournament kind of a feel.
Scorecard calligraphers are important to the game of golf because they are the finalization of the lineups and the scores for each golfer and team.
Because if something's been misspelled, something's changed, they come and tell me, and I change it right away.
Strzok is now living a life she had never imagined. She may not be a fan of hot weather, but the relationships she has made through her time working as a scoreboard calligrapher make her job worth it.
Golf events are happy events, and everybody's outside. They're enjoying themselves. They're walking. They're just having a good time.
In Scottsdale, Erin Slindy, Cronkite News.
Strzok recently did the scorecard calligraphy for the NCAA Women's and Men's Golf Championships at the GRAYHAWK Golf Club in Scottsdale.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.